fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction, he's going with the outside of both of them! Maloney!
Oh, he's taken Anderson! Anderson's up to him!
Oh my god! Big crash! Oh my goodness, half the field's going to get rolled!
Second very close. These guys are going to want to make their way through the field very quickly.
Oh, here we go! Oh no!
That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my god!
God, what?
Yeah, so we're using the VRS Direct Force Pro this year. We have a wheel adapter right here, so I'm using the rim I used last year. But the motor right here produces a lot of power, a lot of precision, and it helps me, just feel the car more, feel the car a lot quicker. Especially, this week we're at Sonoma. I can feel it, when it hits the curbs. Any little change in the car, the wheel reacts a lot quicker than your typical gear-driven or belt-driven wheel. For example, if you're on oval and the rear tires break loose, force feedback on it corrects a lot quicker than your typical wheels. There's no resistance pretty much as far as being able to make quick corrections on the wheel. So all that, paired with how precise the wheel itself is, it makes it to where it helps you as a driver, to find that extra hundredth or thousandths of a second. So when you're getting a direct drive wheel, especially the VRS wheel, it's heavy duty. It's got good weight to it, it's not a plastic toy. It feels like you can really beat up on it. A lot of people have issues with their plastic gear-driven wheels just kind of breaking after a couple years. This thing just feels like it can go forever. The forces are really strong where if you might have to let go of the wheel if you get into the wall. You can adjust all that with the settings on it and stuff, but the wheel itself doesn't play around. It's got way more strength than you could ever need, and that's what makes it good, that you can adjust that down to whatever the car needs. So initially you'll be able to get the controller box and the motor together, and eventually you will be able to add a rim onto that option. They'll also be including a button plate on it to put on the rim to have all sorts of different buttons and functionality. Also, pedals are coming, so that's a pretty big deal as well. Hasn't been covered too much, but the goal is to also have pedals to go along with the Direct Force Pro. So that's pretty exciting. The wheel feels good. It feels very much like a real world steering wheel. You just kind of feel like what you would imagine the car to feel like. A real steering wheel in a car is very smooth, it's very direct, very quick, and that's what this wheel feels like.
Welcome one and all to SimSpeed TV this Saturday night here in the AusNZ SimSphere. Today, it's time for the Virtual Racing School GT Sprint Series B-Class official racing on the iRacing platform. It's week 2 of the series, and we're at the Hockenheim Ring for what is sure to be 40 minutes of fantastic GT racing. We've got some really good drivers here in the split tonight. Can't wait to see how everything stacks up. My name is Reese Gardiner, and joining me in the commentary box for this one for the first time on SimSpeed TV, it's Bradley Wingard. And Bradley, I know that the nerves have been, arcing up a little bit, but certainly there's going to be a lot to keep our interest here tonight. The Hockenheim Ring is a great circuit for racing, and we always like a bit of GT3, don't we?
Yeah, a little bit of GT3 never goes wrong. The racing this week has been pretty intense throughout, the entire week and throughout every single split that I've watched, so I'm really looking forward to what tonight's racing produces for us.
Indeed. Let's take a look at where we're at here for this round of the VRS GT Sprint Series. Hockenheim, an old town in Germany that has been part of motor racing history now for the past 90-something years. It's a really historic circuit, is the Hockenheim Ring. It was first opened in 1932, was public roads, but then eventually it was closed off and modified very much over the years. This current layout dates from 2002, when it was redesigned by Hermann Tilke for the purposes of the German Grand Prix. They wanted the spectators to see the cars a bit more with the old, really long layout. It was really nice having a blast through the forest, but the cars didn't come by very often. Plus, it's been upgraded to proper Grade 1 FIA standard, and 16 turns at this place, Brad. It's very difficult to get them all right, but the main thing that you got to have at Hockenheim is some good traction and a good amount of trim on the rear wing so that you can have some good straight line speed through turn 5 of Parabolica, and you got to be stable under the brakes as well for the hairpin.
Yeah, a lot of people give Herman Tilke a little bit of slack for some of his tracks, but I think this one is definitely one of his best. The run out of turn 2 down the Parabolica is one of the most entertaining parts of racing. Just for a straight with a kink in it, it produces some of the best passes in whatever form of motorsport you're in.
Indeed, and that final sector from turn 11 all the way to the end of the lap is difficult as well, very narrow. That part of the track dates from 1967. Here's the schedule for Virtual Racing School GT Sprint. Of course, we are at round 2, but we've got 12 weeks of racing coming up, and we're going to some fantastic circuits all around the world here. Going to the UK for 2 rounds for the next couple of weeks, going to Brands Hatch and Snetterton, but then we go to some of the most iconic tracks on the European continent. We've got Imola, Spa, and the Red Bull Ring, the newest track on the iRacing service, and I can't wait for that one, Brad, because Red Bull Ring, always been one of my favorite race tracks in any sim. Now we get to drive the laser scan version on iRacing, and they've done a pretty good job of bringing it to the sim.
Yeah, it feels fantastic to drive. You can really see the lines a lot of the drivers, even this weekend in Formula 1. You can run those lines. The new off-track system that iRacing brought in has aced that track, and I'm so excited to see what the racing there brings up.
As am I, but certainly a long and arduous series of races over the next 11 weeks, including this one. The drivers are in qualifying, though, defining their positions for the starting grid. This is Sebastian Dunkel. The number 4 car has yet to set a time. We've had times coming in. Alex Dunn is currently on top by 0.2 of a second over Simeon Lynch, who is the highest I-rating driver in the server right now. And Dunkel just coming up to the end of his lap in one of the newest cars to be brought to the iRacing service, the Porsche 911 GT3R, and I am loving that car. From what I've driven of it, it seems to just make complete sense around a lot of circuits, but Dunkel bringing his first lap time in, it's a 37.414 right there. And that is good enough there for 3rd place at the moment. And it seems that the battle for those top 3 positions, very close. I'm wondering what drivers like Ivan Bertola can do. Brad, it seems that the Lamborghini is the most popular of the GT3 cars for this round anyway.
Yeah, a lot of people at the start of the week were thinking that the Porsche would be strong here because it's got the engine so far back, but the Lamborghini having the engine in the middle, same with the McLaren as well, have been really strong through a lot of the low downforce corners, being able to keep the balance of the car and get the acceleration out, which, like you said, is so important.
Juan Bustamante driving the Lamborghini goes to P4. We just saw another Lamborghini driver here, Pedro Oliveira. He's got a 38.5 on the board so far, but every driver gets 2 laps in this session to set their times, and Oliveira currently on the 2nd of those laps. He's going to have to make an improvement of about a second if he wants to try and be competitive up towards the front. Just coming into the first turn there, Matthias Lauren de Jong right there, having a bit of trouble there at the end of that lap, but Oliveira still making his way around. The session's only got 1.5 minutes left, so if you want to get a time in, now is the moment. And Oliveira here is going to demonstrate the final sector of the Hockenheim ring for us. It's a wide turn in for this sweeping right-hander. You use all of the curb on the exit and then braking as late as you dare for the banked stadium curve. Then you've got a little bit of a chicane here towards the final couple of turns. It's flat out in most cars. You're getting on the brakes right after, though, for this double right-hander. You've got to be very careful not to go too wide there, otherwise you'll get the dreaded off-track 1X, but no such worry on that curb at the exit of the final corner. Oliveira setting a 38.38 right there, and that should... Oh, it actually didn't count Oliveira's lap, so he got an off-track at some point on that lap, and going out very late there is one of the Porsches of Francois Siegwald. he's not going to get a lap time in there. He's going to have to deal with starting 26th on the grid. So we've had 3 drivers in this session who haven't set lap times. Pedro Oliveira, Siegwald, as we saw, and Taylor Barnard as well. They'll take the final 3 spots at the back of the grid here. Well then, now it's time to go through the starting grid. It's done on pole alongside Simeon Lynch, with Dunkel and Bustamante starting off row 2. Gumercindo Cabral starts in 5th, rounding out the top 5 there, and Neto Nascimento will start alongside him, rounding out the top 6. Dominik Kulikovski in 7th alongside Sietse Bosma, with Elias Raikar starting in 9th, with Gail Valero rounding out the top 10, and rounding out the top 12, Aaron Rose and Gerald Chevalier.
In 13th, we have Alberto Geribaldi, Oskari Kaikinen starting next to him, Nicholas Wagner and Pedro Rodriguez on the row 8, Ivan Bertola and Mitch Mcleod on row 9.
They're rounding out the top 18 with Will Egby and Isidre Miro Ferre rounding out the top 20. Then it's Contos and Castro starting alongside each other on row 11 in the BMWs, with De Jong there alongside Michael Reitman, with Rob Harris, the final car to set a qualifying time. Rob J. Harris, of course, streaming on Twitch, as is Mitchell McLeod, the 2 Australians in this field. Then you've got Siegwald, Oliveira, and Barnard rounding out the 28-car field for this one. And Alex Dunn, putting his Lamborghini there on pole position, will be looking to make a good start here at the Hockenheim ring. This is what we've got in terms of race distance. It's 40 minutes, which means about 23 to 25 laps, but the drivers have to deal with a fuel cap of 50% fuel tank capacity. And Brad, we're expecting them to come in around the long middle stage of the race. It's a pretty wide pit window there, laps 7 to 19, but it remains to be seen exactly what strategy will benefit the drivers, whether pitting earlier or later will benefit you.
Yeah, it's definitely going to come down to a bit of track position, especially coming down into the hairpin at turn 6. You can gain and lose so much time there. I reckon a lot of drivers who might be stuck in that traffic are going to take the early window, but Alex Dunn on pole's hopefully going to get his legs away, and he'll probably pit as late as he can.
Indeed, and the lone the lone Porsche in the top 5 rather is Sebastian Dunkel there, who we take a look at as the field pulls away behind the iRacing safety car. I'm really looking forward to seeing this start, because it's been a while since I've gotten some GT3 racing in a broadcast sense. The last time I checked out VRS GT was with Bo Albert at Suzuka last season. So we're broadcasting the series full-time here on SimSpeed TV. We'll be here every Saturday to bring you the action from this particular split. And the drivers lining up very nicely as they make their way through the final couple corners here. The pace car will pull off in between the penultimate and final corners, and now the field is under the control of Alex Dunn. Alongside him, Simeon Lynch, and Dunn has decided to go very early at the apex of the final turn. He's caught Lynch out, and Dunkel has decided to go for it as well. Following Alex Dunn through, there's already a bit of contact as Dunkel comes across on Lynch, but looks like they've both gotten away with that, as it's not a clean start in the midfield. There's been a big crash. We've got Aaron Rose in the wall, in the runoff area. Also Alberto Gravilli and one of the Porsches as well, making their way back into the pits there.
More contact at turn 2.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it's a big shame. Already hearing a thanks, Nicholas, over the voice chat. That's Oskar Kaninen, who has come a cropper there through turn 2. And it looks like it was Pedro Rodriguez, the Porsche, who was taken out there in the first turn, as that's a big lunge there up the inside of the Spitzker. The very tight hairpin, slowest corner on the circuit, as there's another incident at the hairpin just behind, and Ivan Bertola is very unhappy with how things have been going there. He's already got a fair few dents in his car. That's a big shame, but the racing continues as they make their way around. Oh, contact between two Mercedes and a BMW. That's Mitchell McLeod and David Contos coming together, and that has just resulted in a big concertina behind them. Rob Harris sent wide, getting back onto the circuit. Michael Reutman. My goodness, this is a messy start.
You hear it all the time, cautions breed cautions in NASCAR, but I think for road courses, it's incidents cause incidents. It has not stopped since turn 2.
Yeah, this is a lot of drivers I'm hearing very unhappy with how things have been going here on the first lap. I know that GT racing can certainly bring out the big guns, but I think a couple of the drivers here need to just calm down a little bit here as we've started lap 2 and the top 3 very close. It looks like it's on for second here. Simeon Lynch has gotten back by Sebastian Dunkel, but Dunkel is really starting to pressure him as they form single file behind.
Yeah, I think these guys at front know this is more than it's a marathon, not a sprint. The chrome Porsche is just blinding. I'm surprised that they managed to get back past him again, because I wouldn't be able to see a thing behind that.
Yeah, me either. Have a look at how much reflection there is on Dunkel's car. Taylor Barnard, who was another one of the drivers unhappy with how lap 1 went, has decided to bring it into the pits. He's suffered some very big contact there in that incident between Mcleod and the BMW, so he's decided to bring that one into the pits. But having a look at Dunkel trying to chase down Simeon Lynch here. You want to get by him in short order because he's got an ocean of Lamborghinis behind ready to try and take that final spot on the podium off him. They got Juan Bustamante just behind them. Then Nascimento, Cabral, Raikar, Kulikovsky, Valero, and then another Porsche in Sietze, Borisma, Gerald Chevalier, currently in 11th place and the last car in that train. So the top 11 looking to be very closely fought here today.
Yeah, we're on board now with Chevalier in 11th at the back of this train. It's just an absolute sea of cars in front of him. Porsche, Lambo, 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 Porsche. It's just a German invasion of German today. It's relentless.
Yeah, absolutely is. But, you know, Lambos being in Italy, it's quite the... well, I probably shouldn't make a war reference here, but here we go. There's a war going on for the minor places in the top 10, as that is the number 3 of Juan Bustamante, getting passed there by Cabral and Nascimento. It's been a big change in positions there in that part of the field, and Bustamante then goes defensive versus Elias Raikar. And Raikar very wisely backing out of it there on the run up to the hairpin. Not much space to run side by side back there.
At least our cameras are indestructible, because that was pretty close. I reckon he nearly knocked that one off the back then.
Yeah, would agree. There's a big dive here for Bustamante going up the inside of Cabral. And Gumachindo getting sent off the circuit. He would have gotten an off track from that, and his line's been compromised, which is going to allow Bustamante back up the inside. And also going to join the party is Raikar. Don't make it 3 wide, boys. Not into this section. Here you can barely fit 3 cars side by side on a piece of tarmac. So very nicely played out by those guys. But there's a mistake from Cabral in the middle of the hairpin. He's lost the rear end, and once again it's another good exit from Bustamante, but he's unable to take advantage.
Yeah, these guys are braver than I am. I would not go too hard by there, but they made it work. No one really lost out too badly. Everyone's still pointing the same direction, so that's what we want. But brave move into that right-handed kink before the stadium section.
Absolutely. Well, looks like the top 3 are in their own world now, with Neto Nascimento in no man's land up ahead of all of these guys. It's a big crush going into turn 2 here, with Cabral leading the charge. Bustamante looking to try and get by and start recovering from that mistake that he made on the second lap. Currently on lap 4 right now. So, under 35 minutes to go. And pulling out for a move potentially there is Bustamante. Gotten up the inside of Cabral, who goes wide to let him go. And that's a clean move completed there. He just showed him the nose, and at that point, Cabral decided it was best to just let him go.
Yeah, nice clean move into probably one of the tightest corners in our simulator, and comes back at him into the Mercedes section. That was brave, but great awareness by both drivers, and a very, very nice clean move into the hairpin.
Cabral's rear end is really starting to protest here. He's having to defend here from Raikar. And you see that Lamborghini number 5 is just really struggling to get the power down, but he's turned in a bit too early on Raikar and then sent wide. There's contact between them, so that's 2 more positions lost, maybe 3 for Gumacindo Cabral. So Gael Valero has made his way past in one of many sister Lamborghinis on this grid tonight. So there's been no change so far in the top 3, but now Bustamante can look to try and break free of this train, and Cabral looking to try and gain some rhythm back.
I just need to take a breath for a second. Can we pause the video quickly? This is non-stop. We're only, what, 4.75 corners into this lap, into the race, sorry.
Yeah, it's been very action-packed here in the opening stages at Hockenheim, but now the drivers can actually settle into a rhythm, and I tell you what, Nato Nascimento is, I think, starting to catch up to the top 3 here, because they're all running like, you know, mid to high 1:37s at the moment in the top 3. Nascimento is matching them and looking to try and gain. And the issue is, when you're battling so close for the lead of a race like that, like
There's contact behind. Lamborghini's around, big contact.
Oh dear, that's a big shame there. That's Oliveira that's come together with, who was that? Karkinen, sorry. And that was contact out of the hairpin. We'll get a virtual racing school replay of that one. It looks to me like Oliveira was making a move on Michael Rotman in the Porsche, but they came together on the exit. Looked like a bit of oversteer from Reutemann over the curb. That sent him into Oliveira and then spun around, and Karkinen had nowhere to go.
Yeah, just really unlucky. That orange sausage curve on the outside can be your best friend or your worst enemy, and unfortunately this time it was worst case scenario and nowhere to go except into his opposition.
Well, that happens sometimes, unfortunately, but we turn our attention back to the battle for the lead. There's only 3/10 separating Dunn, Lynch and Dunkel up at the front. And Nascimento, the gap is staying reasonably consistent for him, but he was faster than all of the top 3 on the last lap. So keep an eye out for Nato Nascimento later on in this race. It's very late on the brakes there for Dunkel. Goes up to the rear bumper of Simeon Lynch.
Yeah, Nato Nascimento is exactly where I want to be in this position. I can see them, but I've got 2 seconds to react if something goes wrong. And in most of these scenarios, something probably will go wrong. I'm hoping for a commentary reverse curse here, but it does happen, and he's in the perfect position if something does.
Indeed. The Audi of Isidro Miro Ferre just letting by Tiago Castro and Ivan Bertola, who are battling quite hard here for position. Bertola in the Lamborghini and Castro in the BMW M4. And both of them carrying a bit of damage from the opening shenanigans in the first couple of laps. And oh, that's big into the gravel there for Castro. Oh, can he hold on to it? He does, but no, he can't. He gets into the wall in the gravel trap, roughly where Sebastian Vettel did in 2018. And it looks like he's decided to call it a night.
That's really unfortunate. Running 15th, not quite where he was hoping, I'm sure, but 15th in a field as competitive as this is definitely a result I would take.
Yeah, certainly, but unfortunately for Tiago, I think he decided that it was all just too much, and decided it was best to just go for another split later on, get a couple of races in, get his iRating back. Well, the battle for the lead continues here. Up into the tight hairpin, and it's still just under 4/10 separating these guys, but Nascimento is caught up.
Yeah, gap's gone down from 2.5 seconds to 1.2 seconds in 2 laps, and now he's well within striking distance rather than, yeah, I'll wait for a crash, now it's time, okay, now it's time for me to attack.
Yep, the tyres are up to pressure, they're up to temperature. He can really start trying to get the best out of that Lamborghini. So now it's a proper 4-way battle for the lead, and you saw that on our graphic that Nascimento took 0.6 out of the leader on the last lap, and with how close they've been battling, ultimately they're all losing time to the drivers behind. There's still quite a gap back to 5th place Juan Bustamante, who's just not been able to get his nose in on this battle just yet, but we'll wait till the pit stop cycle comes around to see what that does.
Yeah, pit stop could be a make or break for anyone in this top 4 battle, really. You go a bit too fast into pit entry, you miss your pit box, you have a slight angle, and your top 4 result is pretty much as good as gone.
Well, looked like a big lift into turn 2 for Alex Dunn there. Might be trying to save a bit of fuel, try and minimise the amount of time that he actually spends in the pits, because these guys all getting a draft behind him. They can afford to lift off and save a bit of fuel themselves. Of course, it's not going to be of much strategic benefit as to whether or not you actually go for a stop, as there is the big move up the inside on Sebastian Dunkel from Neto Nascimento. So the number 9 now up into 3rd place. Unfortunately, they do lose a bit of time to Lynch and Dunn on the exit, but Nascimento up into 3rd, and that was a very decisive manoeuvre.
It was very well planned. There was a perfect gap there for him. He 10 out of 10 moved that one. It was just absolutely seamless. It looks like he does that in his sleep.
I'm pretty sure he does. I've raced around Neto Nascimento many years in the past, and certainly kept an eye on what he's been doing in sims and years past. Now in iRacing, and of course making himself known in the GT3 scene. But now that he's gotten by Dunkel, he can reset once again, try and get a draft off the back of Simeon Lynch, and see if he can make his way up a bit further into the lead. Nascimento didn't quite capitalise on qualifying. He qualified 6th on a 1 minute 37.644, but now in race conditions he's proving himself to be one of the strongest.
Yeah, qualifying isn't everything, and I think this perfectly shows that. Even in a short 40-minute race like this one, he's been where he needs to be and is doing perfectly.
Absolutely, yes. We got a virtual racing school replay, excuse me. This is Mitchell Mcleod and the Mercedes, one of the more embattled competitors here tonight. Of course, involved in that lap 1 scrap. He's got quite a bit of damage on his bonnet from that. Almost looks like it's got a bit of a hood scoop, but he's gone for a very late entry into the pits. No, he's decided to pull off, and it looks like that's a retirement from Mitchell Mcleod.
Very unfortunate for Mitch on his recentish re-return to iRacing. Probably not happy with that result, but hopefully we'll see him next week.
Yeah, I certainly hope so too. Mitch, always a fun driver to watch, as look at how little space Alex Dunn was giving to the wall on the entry to the stadium section. You want to try and make that turn in as wide as you possibly can, because you need to carry every bit of speed you need to through that following corner. But Nascimento now starting to draw up to the back of Simeon Lynch here, who's decided to go for an early pit stop here. So that's a big call from Simeon Lynch here at the end of lap 9. And he's joined on pit entry by Juan Bustamante. So Juan, in his campaign here to elevate himself back up into the top 4, looking to make this a nice long final stint, see if he can try and gain some track position on the cars up ahead.
If my math is correct, he'll probably come out around 17th or 18th. Little bit of a gap, which is good for him to catch that pace up that he lost, but it also leaves Nascimento out to gain on Alex Dunn, because his pace, like we said, has been absolutely rapid. So hopefully he'll be making the most of it as much as Bustamante is hoping to as well.
Yes, and wow, already in the thick of it there is our friend Simeon Lynch behind Oskari Kakinen, and behind the Porsche is Bustamante, and looks like Alberto Gravili just lifting off and letting him go there. I think he's aware that those guys have just come out of the pits, and they're kind of not on the same strategy, so there's no point in battling too hard with them. But Kakinen has got his hands full with Simeon Lynch at the moment as we take a look at the battle for 4th. Elias Raikar has moved up into 4th thanks to those pitters up ahead. He's got Dominic Kulikowski and Gal Valero right behind him, a trio of Lamborghinis making their way around the last couple of corners.
Yeah, no matter where you look, there's cars almost literally pushing each other around the track. It's just this is why we love GT racing. It doesn't matter what car you're in or what track you're in, you get this racing up and down the field. Qualifying was split by 1.2 seconds over 22 drivers, and it's been replicated here in the race.
Has indeed a very competitive field here in the top split of Virtual Racing School GT Sprint. And we saw that that pit stop time comparison between Simeon Lynch and Juan Bustamante. Bustamante was 0.3 faster in the stop, but only 1/10 faster in the lane. So it'll be interesting to see how that works out in the end between those drivers. If either of them encounters a bit of traffic here from cars that haven't pitted yet, then that's going to really define the battle for the top 5. But we ride on board with Gael Valero now in the top 6, thanks to the pitters up ahead. He's got a great view here of Raikkonen and Kulikovsky ahead.
Yeah, this sort of racing troubles me. You want to be as close as you can for that jump in the...
Oh no, that's Dunkel. Sebastian Dunkel spinning on the exit of the Mercedes arena. It looks like he's got a bit of damage to his wing as well. We'll get a Virtual Racing School replay of that incident. Poor Sebastian Dunkel, you know, following behind Neto Nascimento, it just looks to me like the rear end got away from him out through this right-hander, right in the middle of the right-hander, and then as he went over the sausage curb, it was just exacerbated, and he ends up backing it into the wall. So already a bit of damage on the rear end there for Dunkel, and he's decided to waste no time getting it back into the pits.
Hopefully he carries on from that. It was a pretty decent shunt, but hopefully he continues, because his pace is still phenomenal. He could still be on for a top 10, but just one of those little things, those microseconds that make the difference between winning a race and putting it in the fence just before your pit stop.
Yeah, and I'd say micrometers on your throttle application as well. So there's Dunkel in the pits. Also coming in is Michael Reutmann. Just bringing his way in. Dunkel's made his way out of the pits now. And
31 in lane and stop time, not too bad. Hopefully still competitive.
Yeah, hopefully so. And he didn't spend that much time in the box either. I think he's elected not to get any of that damage repaired, see if it actually affects his handling or not. He was probably able to tell on the other half of that lap whether or not he needed to get some damage repaired. That Porsche now has a big dent in the rear end of it, but he's going to continue. And one of the quickest pit stop times so far of 8.6 seconds. Here's Gumersindo Cabral, the number 17, down in 17th. No, number 17, chasing down Sitze Bosma in one of the few Porsche 911 GT3Rs in this field. And it's amazing how much curb you can take in that section without getting an off track. But I think that might have just been on the verge of an off track there for Cabral.
Yeah, you got to maximize everything through that section. There's not a lot of room to work with. The cars become really light, especially coming up towards the drag strip. So if the room's there, of course the guys are going to take them. Hopefully it was there and they don't get penalized later for it.
Yeah, exactly. The drivers have to deal with a limit of 25 incidents before they get disqualified. You get a penalty when you get to 17 incidents, so you'll have to make a tour through the pits. A few drivers in this field, after everything that happened in the first couple of laps, will already be monitoring their incident count and just hoping to minimize the off-tracks, minimize contact with other cars, so that they don't get hit with one of those penalties and lose even more time. Here's Simeon Lynch, by the way, the number 1 first car out of our top runners to pit, up behind David Kontos in the BMW, who's carrying a little bit of damage to his rear wing from what I can see, and certainly to the front bumper too. But Lynch was just about a second faster than Kontos on the last lap, as Dunkel continues to try and make up more positions behind as well, getting his way past Alberto Gravilli. And next up on his target list is Matthias Lauren de Jong there. Always have a bit of trouble with these European names, as Bustamante makes his way by Oskari Kakinen finally.
Yeah, Simeon Lynch has just gotten past David Kontos through the Mercedes Arena section. His last lap time matched the leader, so he's pushing as hard as he can to try and make up that deficit.
Well, he's got a bit of clear air up ahead of him now until he gets to Francois Siegwald up ahead in the Porsche. So I'm seeing another pitter. David Kontos decided to make his way in after getting passed there by Mr. Lynch. So we'll see how that one goes for him. Coming in behind is another BMW. That's Rob Harris.
Yeah, Rob's had a pretty quiet night tonight. Not by his standards, sorry, but with all the action going on. But he's made up 4 spots since the start, and that's the Rob Harris way. Really, is keep your nose clean and keep pushing forward.
Yeah, well, I'm not too sure how that's going to go. Looking at the Lamborghinis making their way around out of the Mercedes arena, Gael Valero still trying to chase down these guys up ahead of him. Currently in 5th, so he's on for a pretty good position. If he does a bit less of that, goodness me, off into the gravel on the entry to the stadium section, you certainly don't want that.
No, it's a bit early in the day to be out there making sandcastles, but he obviously got a bit excited and couldn't wait for the end of the race, but manages to truck on, no damage or spins, so a bit lucky with that one.
Biggest mover in the field currently is Francois Siegwald. Remember, he was one of the drivers not to set qualifying time. Started down 26th and now up to 13th, which is a fantastic run, and he's managed to do it with a clean car as well. He's avoided all of the big incidents that we've seen so far, and he's got a Flying Lizard paint job on that Porsche, which certainly brings some memories of watching the 12 Hours of Sebring back in the late 2000s.
Yeah, I think that's a memory that sticks with a lot of motorsports fans, that 2007 Sebring finish, and I'm sure he's hoping for something a bit similar here, but a little bit too far down the field, although his pace is still really good, so hopefully he can keep moving up. He's done a great job so far, up 13, so I'm sure his next goal is, who is it? Fiore in front of him.
Yeah, Bertola and Ferre just up ahead of these guys. And Ferre managed to take 3/10 out of Ivan Bertola on the last lap, so he's certainly on a bit of a charge after we saw him just lifting off to let some cars by earlier on. I thought he might have a few issues, but evidently he's worked those out. Still carrying a bit of damage, though. Gonna have to be careful of that. Nato Nascimento and Alex Dunn here at the front of the field, and both of them deciding to avoid the pits for another occasion here. It looks like they're deciding to go long and pit a bit later on, see if they can try and eke out this gap here over their competitors. But looking at the times for Alex Dunn and Simeon Lynch, it looks pretty similar. 37.93 for Simeon Lynch versus a 37.90 for Alex Dunn. So Alex is doing well here to try and keep the gap consistent. It'll all come down to how he conducts himself in the lane, because if you make one mistake coming into or out of your pit box, or God forbid you get a speeding in pits penalty, then that's going to be all his hard work undone.
Yeah, gap last lap, as we saw, was a 31.6 between Dunn and Lynch. Stop here's 31 seconds. This is going to be a close one. Simeon Lynch has 7 seconds in front of him, give or take. Plenty of room to catch some time up, so this could go down to the wire. I reckon lap 19, lap 20, bring me on.
Yes, please. I'm looking forward to it. So 2.2 the gap between Dunn and Nascimento. Up at the front of the field, of course, they haven't pitted yet. We've had just under half of the field make their pit stops so far in these early stages. Some of them, of course, to get some damage repaired. Some of them, you know, they were involved in an incident and they just decided to bring it in, get their pit stop out of the way now so that they lose as little time as possible. Here's Riker in the top 3, looking back at Kulikovsky and Valero. And these guys have not been able to leave each other alone.
No, I'm not sure who brought it out, but someone's brought the super glue today, because they won't separate, and it's great to watch, but I'm sure they're sweating up a storm in the front of those cars. Just unreal stuff at the moment.
Absolutely unreal. Because not only has this battle been hard and fast, it's also been pretty clean as well in the top 5 positions, as Nicholas Wagner bringing his Porsche into the pits from just inside the top 10. Francois Siegwald as well making his way in. Both of those Porsches with some very nice real-life inspired paint jobs, and it looks like Wagner has a Manthe-inspired livery on his machine, and that's another livery that I really enjoy from real-life events. You can never miss a Manthe Porsche.
No, I don't know which is brighter, that one or the chrome Porsche of... who was that? God, I've already forgotten. That's embarrassing.
It's all good. I think who you're talking about there is... Oh, God. His name escapes me as well. The driver that started third, okay?
That's the one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Dunkel, that's right. Sebastian
That's
Dunkel,
yes.
number 4. Well, the battle continues into the stadium section. Valero just zoning in there on Kulikovsky, as it looks like Raikkonen is starting to pull away from these two, and slight technical issue there for Gael Valero. He'll want to try and minimize that, and they all avoid the pits once more, but the Porsche behind them says no. That's Sitze Bosma making his way into the pits and trying to nail the pit entry here. Gets down to 50 kilometers an hour before the limiter line. It's a very slow pit speed limit here at Hockenheim, isn't it?
Yeah, it feels like an eternity after going 250, 260 down into the hairpin to then be doing a fifth of that. It's just a world of difference. You can complain about peak hour traffic. Doesn't get much worse than a mid-race pit stop.
Yeah, absolutely. There's 2 other drivers making their way into the pits as well. Bertola and Ferre, the battling pair of Lamborghini and Audi that we were checking in on before, as Gravilli makes his way into the pits as well. So we're seeing a big amount of mid to late stage pit stops here for a lot of people. It looks to me like Bertola and Ferre have left the pits at about the same time as Oskari Kakkonen makes his way in just ahead of Gravilli. Simeon Lynch, meanwhile, still keeping the times consistent with our leader, Alex Dunn. He is losing just a little bit every single lap, but again, if Dunn has a bad pit stop, then Lynch is going to be right in it for the race win. Here is Dunn.
It's a little bit of an understeer, well, gets a little bit of understeer, sorry, into that the hairpin. Manages it up though. Pit this lap or next lap is his last choices, and he's electing to come in.
All right, so all eyes on Alex Dunn now as he makes his way into the pits.
Nascimento behind him.
Ah, yes. Nato Nascimento bringing it in too, so this will be a good direct comparison here between the 2 Lamborghinis. We've got more drivers coming in just behind them as well. Raikkonen, Kulikovsky and Valero all coming in at the same time. And it looks like Kulikovsky and Valero actually gained some time there on Raikkonen. He was a bit cautious coming into the lane. More cars coming in as well. The Lamborghini of Gumersindo Cabral, the Mercedes of Gerald Chevalier, and the Lamborghini of Will Egby. So Simeon Lynch making his way down the front straight now, and Alex Dunn has just exited the pits. So it looks like that continuation there for Alex Dunn has really worked out to him. That is the gap for the lead now. About 2 seconds, and that's going to be very difficult for Simeon Lynch to make up in the last 10 minutes.
It's not even just Lynch to worry about. Nascimento behind him is not too far off either, so this could come down to the wire for the podium for sure.
Absolutely could. Juan Bustamante has made his way back up into 4th place, by the way, through that pit stop cycle, so he put in some really good times. Oh no, that's a big shame there for Gumersindo, and he's had to spend quite a bit of extra time there, stopped in the lane. There we go, he finally gets going. 50 seconds, that stop time. Hopefully he'll be able to recover something from that, but Dunn and Lynch at the front of the field. It's not really necessary to change tyres in these GT3 cars. They've got tyres that can last a good long while, but once you're out of the pits, you do gain somewhat of a tyre advantage because they've had a bit of a chance to cool down. If you've been driving it too hard out on track and overheating those tyres, then you'll end up losing a bit of pace. But Bringing them back down to temperature allows you to take a little bit more out of them in every single corner.
Yeah, thankfully the guys aren't having to deal with an overly hot track today. Only 36 degrees, so tires overheating on track surfaces alone won't be too bad. Just all the other factors that they have to worry about that they'll be constantly thinking about, let alone everyone else that they're having to drive against. It's a one-man army in the front of those cars.
As indeed. Kulikovsky, of course, at the lead of this 3-car battle that we've been keeping track of throughout this race. We're on board with Elias Rijkaard at the moment and getting a little bit of slipstream here through the Parabolica, which is effectively the back straight here at the Hockenheim ring. Have a look at that momentum that Rijkaard gathers on the run up to the hairpin. He's a bit too far back to make a proper move into the corner, but you see him lifting off there just to save a little bit more fuel once again. The driver's obviously very conscious of how much fuel they're using per lap here. He might have short fueled on his pit stop, so just trying to gain a little bit of extra time. Nonetheless, continuing their battle through the Mercedes arena. They've got a 2-car battle behind them, the 2 Porsches of Dunkel and Bosma. Looks like Dunkel has made his way by, so Sebastian Dunkel continuing to make up positions. He's back up into 8th.
Yeah, that rear end damage doesn't seem to be slowing him down very much. It's probably a distant memory in his mind now. It's just eyes forward and try and get as much out of what's remaining of the car's aerodynamics, and he's putting on a show for us, that's for sure.
Yeah, he certainly is. Is the battle for 13th. Siegwald in the Flying Lizard Porsche. Bertola and Ferre just behind them, behind him, who have been locked together for the majority of this race. But it looks to me as though that Porsche driver is making his way forward. He's starting to gap the Lamborghini and the Audi at the moment. Siegwald, of course, still the biggest mover in the field. Remember, he started in 26th. He was the first of the drivers not to set a time in qualifying. So it's been an absolutely fantastic run from Francois here. But we take a look once again at, a move up the inside, and at the hairpin there. It looks to me as though Valero putting the move there on Elias Rijkaard. Rijkaard, with the very aggressive lift into the hairpin on the last lap, obviously did the same thing there, and right there to take advantage was Valero, but he has to go wide, give Rijkaard a little bit of space through the Mercedes arena, but gets the traction down on the outside, and that is move complete. Oh, or is it? Just catches the sausage curb, and immediately goes defensive again. Rijkaard with a bit of a wider turn in there. He's going to gain a little bit of an advantage on the exit here, and they're going to run side by side to the stadium curve. No. Looks like Rijkaard just a bit earlier on the brakes and caught the grass to boot, so that's given a big advantage there to Kulikovsky.
Yeah, after the hairpin, Kulikovsky had to delay his turn and ran wide, lost quite a bit of time, but Rijkaard and Valero going side by side through that middle section was brave. That was a game of inches, and they played it to perfection and moved on.
Absolutely. As, there's a bit of a problem there in the Mercedes arena. Who's that? That's Cabral, who's had another issue down in 22nd. This is the guy that started in 5th place, so he's obviously having a very frustrating night out there at the moment. My sympathies go to him, but he's going to try and continue and get something resembling a finish. So Valero and Rijkaard still together here on the run up to the Spitzkehre once again. But Rijkaard not in any hurry to try and get that position back on Gael Valero. They want to settle down here, try and get themselves up to Kulikovsky, and both have a shot at a top 5 position.
Yeah, I think you might be right about fuel saving, because even at the end of last lap, the gap was a second, and by the hairpin, it was down to half a second in front to Kulikovsky. So maybe he did underfuel, or his tires are just overheated, but these guys lost a lot of time last lap, and they've already caught it up, so this could be an interesting last 3.5 minutes that we're in for.
Absolutely. This is going to be quite a great finish for a few positions in this race, particularly this one, the battle for 5th. But the battle for the lead doesn't look to be under that much of a threat at all, because Simeon Lynch has not been able to make up much time here on Alex Dunn. The gap remains at about 1.5 seconds. Yeah, this battle here for 5th place continuing in its intensity. But I tell you what, that number 2 is really starting to make some advances. Valero on the back of Kulikovsky now in the draft. He pulls out to make the move, gets up the inside in the braking zone, or does he? Kulikovsky sees him coming there and has to delay his turn in, so that's going to be 2 positions lost for him potentially on the exit. No, it looks like Rijkaard backed out of it, and Kulikovsky now will try and fight with Gael Valero into the braking zone for the Mercedes Arena. Goes out over the curb, gets back up the inside under brakes. Got to be careful of the anti-cut curb on the inside, and Rijkaard's right in it as well. Valero side by side with him. Rijkaard backs out once again. This is a fantastic battle we're seeing.
Yeah, and we're not even at the most exciting part of the track yet. It's 2 becomes, big slide off the corner there. It could be too wide into the hairpin. Loses out to the inside.
Oh no! Valero! He just got the rears. Lost under brakes, and Rijkaard and Kulikovsky side-by-side contact through the turns coming up to the final corners. My goodness, this battle has just gone off, and Kulikovsky now having to bring it into the pits. I think he's exceeded the incident limit there for the penalty.
That Hori did overfuel, but hopefully not.
Well, we'll see then. Let's see if Kulikovsky brings it into the box. And it's a drive-through for Dominic Kulikovsky. So he went over 17 incidents there with that contact with Rijkaard, and he will be none too happy with the fin.
Yeah, those sort of things are so difficult because, yeah, he got the drive-through from the contact, so of course he's going to blame the driver. But where did the other 13 bits of contact come from? Probably his own mistakes, a couple of off tracks at the drag strip, at the hairpin he's gone wide twice. Just a series of unfortunate events on that last lap, and I'm sure he is now fuming in that cockpit.
Well, that mess that erupted for the 5th place battle has brought Sebastian Dunkel back into contention for a top 6 in the final moments of the race. And he could be chasing down Valero. Oh no, Lynch! Oh no! That's a huge shame there for our 2nd place runner. That's allowed Neto Nascimento up into 2nd, and then Juan Bustamante into 3rd there in the number 3 as we've only got a few seconds left here as Dunn crosses the line. It looks like it is going to be a 25-lapper. Here's what happened to Lynch. And this happened at the stadium hairpin. Let's see then how this all came undone for our 2nd place qualifier and 2nd place runner for a lot of this race. Got a bit loose over the curb.
Yeah, just a little bit hot. He had Alex Dunn in front of him getting held up by lap traffic, so wanting to close that gap as much as he could, and just got a little bit too eager on the brake, I think.
Looks like Dunkel back into the pits, it looks like, for a splash and dash or something to that regard. But Alex Dunn in the Williams Esports Lamborghini will be making his way through here on his final lap.
Up the inside coming into turn 8.
Yes, indeed. So Lynch and Bustamante. It's not over between the two. It was a side-by-side contact between the two of them. And Lynch trying very bravely to hold on to the outside line, which gives him the inside for this right-hander. But have a look at Bustamante. He wants nothing more than to regain this podium position. Lynch is still alongside, though, coming into the braking zone. They're going to run side-by-side. Bustamante almost dipping a wheel off into the gravel there. Down to the stadium hairpin. Lynch still holding on to the outside. Up the front, though, as this position continues to be fought over. That's going to go right to the line. Mr. Alex Dunn is going to take victory here. And Lynch up the inside of Bustamante holds on to it, and Bustamante on the comms there. He's not very happy with what Lynch has done on that final lap, but Lynch is going to take that third.
We thought it was all over, and then it just keeps going. That was an immense finish. Maybe not for Alex Dunn and Nascimento, but that finish for 4P3 was insane.
Absolutely was. We're going to get a replay of that final half lap here for third place. Simeon Lynch trying to recover from a spin. Bustamante trying to recover from an incident of his own early on in the race. So Lynch pushing the issue here through the right-hander. They both gave each other a good amount of space through there, but here is where it all started to come undone for the both of these guys. Lynch holding the outside. He went for the turn in here, and just up the inside, they go side by side through the final corner. Bustamante off the circuit, and then Lynch a little bit of understeer on the narrow line. Just went into the side of Bustamante, and big weaving on the run up to the line. Bustamante showing his displeasure on the headlight flash button.
Yeah, you can't get much closer than that without ending up in the fence. I think Simeon Lynch gave him enough room, just enough room. It might have just been that understeer at the last corner, but he gave him enough room and still came out on top. So I'm not sure what else you can want from that.
Absolutely. Well, time to run through the results then. Alex Dunn taking victory from pole by 3.6 seconds from Nato Nascimento, who charged his way up from 6th very nicely. Simeon Lynch could have been second were it not for that spin. Juan Bustamante working his way back up to where he started in 4th. That was a good recovery from him. Elias Raikar made up 4 positions there to round out the top 5, with Gael Valero also making up good positions there to finish 6th. Sitze Bosma in 7th, with Gerald Chevalier, Nicholas Wagner and Will Egby rounding out the top 10.
Francois Siegwald, our biggest mover, up 15 spots. Can't get much better than that. Dominic finishing P12. Ivan Bertola, good recovery, unfortunate late pit. Same for Sebastian Dunkel in 14th. Very good recovery from him. Oscar did well in 16th. David Contis 17th. 18th was Michael Reutmann. 19th, Alberto Gravali, and Matthias de Jong in 20th.
The top 20 rounded out, and the last car to finish on the lead lap, if not just finish full stop, was Rob Harris. And we get into laps down and retirement territory. It looks like Cabral and Barnard were able to take the flag, albeit 5 and 8 laps down. And then our retirement list: Mcleod, Castro, Oliveira, Rodriguez, and Aaron Rose. Rodriguez and Aaron Rose both out on the first lap in that opening turn crash. So that's the end of it there for Virtual Racing School GT Sprint Series here on the iRacing platform. Next week we go to the Brands Hatch circuit in Kent. A bit of a different kettle of fish to Hockenheim. There's elevation change, walls are close at all times, and trees lining the circuit. It's a brilliant old school track, is Brands Hatch. I can't wait to see how the racing works out there. Will Alex Dunn be able to carry this momentum of the win this week here at Hockenheim? Will Nascimento, Lynch or Bustamante be able to sneak through to take victory? And who will escape the inevitable lap 1 carnage? Well, we'll find out next week, next Saturday, here on SimSpeed TV. I'm Reese Gardner. It was a great debut there from Bradley Wingard in the second slot in the commentary box, and Jay Kennedy making everything happen behind the scenes, directing, controlling the cameras, handling the stream here on YouTube and Facebook and Twitch. From all of us here at SimSpeed TV, bye for now, but not forever. We'll see you tomorrow for Virtual Racing School V8 Scops, but next week, we're going to Brands Hatch in VRS GT.
This is fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction, he's got rid of the outside of both of them! Maloney!
Oh, he's taken Anderson. Anderson's up to
Oh my god! Oh! Big crash! Oh my goodness, half the field's gonna get rolled!
Very close. These guys this! Oh my god!
God, what?